Can you even believe it? We are just 10 days away from Christmas. And we're not going to talk about Christmas today. I feel like by the time we get to this time of the year, not that I'm all Christmased out, but I purposely didn't do really any Christmas episodes because I have a lot that are back from the past couple of years. And sometimes we just want to hear normal conversations and normal things in the middle of all of the Christmas rush and the Christmas music and that kind of stuff. But I hope that you are feeling prepared for Christmas Day, but in the meantime that you are enjoying this season. Today's episode is dedicated to a Q&A. These are questions that you, the listener, have submitted. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast. I am your host, Leigh Nguyen. I am a homeschool mom that is at the end of her journey, but I feel so passionate about homeschooling and helping other moms to get started and to continue with it that I started this podcast a couple of years ago. And my heart's prayer is just that it encourages you to keep at it, just day in and day out, little by little. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep at it, because I can tell you from my own experience that it is completely worth it. This Christmas season feels a little bit bittersweet for me. It is my final Christmas of homeschooling. Of course, I still have my kids. My family will still do all the Christmas stuff, but it feels very strange that the past, including this year, for 15 years, Christmas and homeschool has been something that has been intertwined. And I just hope that you are enjoying your Christmas season, whether you're doing full-on Christmas school or you're integrating it in some ways. I just hope that it is blessing you and that you all are creating memories. And even more than that, your kids are growing in their faith and their understanding and their knowledge of Jesus and just his birth and all that that means. So let's now get into the episode. Okay, we've got some good questions. Also, if you have a question that you would like me to answer, I will do another Q&A in January. So check out the link in the show notes so that you can leave your question. It can be completely anonymous. You can leave your name if you want, but I don't include the name even if you do so. The first question says, I also started a homeschool group at our church. Oh, the beginning part, she says that she really enjoyed in one of the previous Q&As, someone asked about a homeschool group. And she said she also started a homeschool group at our church. This group isn't church sponsored or funded. So while I can use the building, there's not any involvement from the church itself. Several members from the church are in the group, but most of the families are not church members. The group started out with signups, so every family will be planning a small educational lesson. With really no guidelines, it can be whatever they want, as detailed or as simple as they'd like. No one is hardly signing up these days. I'm planning all the lessons, providing material lists for members to bring, and they can't seem to bring the supplies. I feel wrong to start charging a fee since this is at a church. I can't help but think to charge a fee and then buy the material in bulk. I don't even know how much I charge, as I only plan a month in advance. I don't want to take advantage of anyone, but feel like this is not working. Do you have any recommendations? Have you been in church homeschool groups before? If so, how did they work? I've been a part of a couple different co-ops. I can't recall us being part of something so casual, but we've done things here and there. So it doesn't really quite matter what my experience is. I'm just going to give you a little bit of input and some feedback. Just like in a previous Q&A, I talked about how it's okay to charge a fee. It doesn't sound like you're going to charge $1,000 per child. So you have zero guilt. Do not worry about that at all. If somebody doesn't want to, or they're not able to budget-wise, you can give that option. So here's an option. You can tell families that either they can do a lesson or volunteer or something like that, or they can pay a certain fee. I remember when we did baseball, my kids were little, and there would be a fundraiser. And so you pay a certain fee, and then you would sell a certain amount of boxes of candy bars. And I always was like, oh, great. But I actually would send it into work with my husband, and it would be gone in one day. But there came one year when our budget was so tight. We didn't have the money for it. We had been playing baseball with them. My husband had been volunteering. So I reached out and just said, is there a scholarship, or is there any way that we can do any type of volunteer work? Can we come work on the fields? Can we do something just to be able to help us to cover some of this fee for it? And they said, actually, if you want to just sell a couple more boxes of candy, then you can recoup it. I was like, that is perfect. So there are sometimes some ways that maybe you can work it, that maybe a family or two that doesn't have the extra funding for it, and they're great families and you want them to be a part of it, maybe the other families kind of offset that. You don't have to tell them that. So maybe you're looking at charging each family $50 for the semester. And if everybody was paying, maybe you would charge 30 or 35. But there's a couple families who said, we will be there every month and we will help out and we will maybe do some prep stuff. Maybe they get together with you a couple days beforehand and kind of get some stuff prepped. So that might kind of make you feel a little bit like, okay, some families are a little strapped for money, but we really want them to be a part of it. So that might kind of help out with that a little bit. But I don't think you need to feel guilty about it. And if people don't want to provide a lesson, they don't want to provide materials, they don't want to do the thing, and they don't want to pay, then this sounds kind of sounds a little harsh, but it's okay if they move on and they go ahead and try something else. It sounds like you really want to do this. And if your heart is in it, then just be honest and let them know. This might be a good time to let them know that you're kind of changing things up come January. Maybe you hold off on meeting for a couple of weeks just so everybody can kind of get things figured out. And I know that maybe you don't quite know how much to charge. Come up with a number and then just make it work. Or to be honest, I wouldn't say every month pay this fee. I would just do an upfront kind of thing. So take a look. You have January through maybe April or May. And how many times is that you're going to be getting together, and just kind of look at how much you're spending right now and come up with a number. And if you get towards the end and you don't quite have the budget, you can ask if anybody wants to chip in or if anybody can bring supplies for things. But I would just say, just be honest and let everybody know where things are. And it doesn't matter that it is at a church. They're providing you with a building for probably free or possibly just a little bit of money. And you're not going to find that anywhere else. So don't feel bad. It's not, again, you're not running a racket here. You're not walking home with a ton of money or anything. So don't feel bad about that. Next question says, I'm struggling with feeling like I'm not doing enough. Staying organized and doing as much fun activities as other homeschool moms in our co-op. I only have 3 kids. Only? Come on, girlfriend. You have 3 kids. You've got your hands full. You've got 3. And many of these families have 5, 7, or even 8 kids. Yet they have color-coded, organized bookcases and very tidy homes. The fun activities they do and engaging lessons with what seems to be 100 pieces of cutouts and all the extra. How do others find time to prep? And where do you store all of this? I feel so overwhelmed, but know my kids would love it if we were more creative. It sounds like what you could benefit from is taking a look at your family culture and saying, what is important to us? Obviously, to these families, having color-coded, organized bookcases and tidy homes and doing all kinds of lessons with 100 pieces of cutouts and storing all that stuff, that is important to them. Is it important to you? There's no right or wrong. And if you say, it's not really important to me that our bookcases are organized, I really don't care. As long as the books maybe get back onto the bookcase, that's not wrong. That's just how you prefer. That's okay for you and your family. Yes, there can get into a point where things are just like too much chaos and it's just adding chaos to the family and stuff. So you don't have to have a spectacularly spotless home. And just because they have 5, 7, or 8 kids. Now, I only, like you, only have 3 kids. But I have heard that when you start adding more kids, now remember, you had 1 child. I remember having my first and being like, this is so overwhelming. Had the second. That felt overwhelming because now I'm juggling. Third one, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. And I've heard fourth, and I'm not saying it's not a shock. I'm not saying there isn't adjustment, but I have heard that as you add more, it's just like, okay, it's not as big of a deal. It can be. So I'm not saying it's not. Again, there's that initial adjustment and everything. But then also you have older kids. So I have seen families who have 8, 9, 10 kids, and the oldest might be 15 when the 10th child is born. You have a 15-year-old and a newborn and a lot of kids in between, but it's so different than when you have 3 kids that maybe are 5, 3, and 1. That's a whole nother world than if your oldest is 15. So let's go back to, what is your family culture? What is important to you? How is it important for you to spend your time? Now, I want to hone in on the end of this, her saying that she feels overwhelmed, but she knows her kids would love it if she was more creative. Here's the thing. We need to do things as homeschool moms that are not maybe what we are naturally inclined to. because we see that our kids will really enjoy it. I am creative in a different type of way. My kids all loved to draw and to do art stuff. And it's funny now because my drawing never advanced from probably like the second grade, but they are all amazing at it. So I pushed myself to set up an art center and to get the supplies and to encourage them in their drawing. Now, my husband is a great artist, so he was a great resource. So maybe for some of this, you can kind of outsource some. Don't be afraid to ask these moms, where are you getting some of these ideas? And then just go and copy what somebody has, or purchase a product, or just some way get your hands on it so that your kids can actually do it, and set aside some time. Don't feel like you have to add this to maybe an already full day. Maybe if you want your kids, you want to do some more creative things with them, that is your homeschool day, or that is your homeschool week. Or you say, okay, every Friday, this is what we're going to do. You get to choose. It doesn't mean that we are doing our math and our language arts and our geography and our science and our history and our morning time, and then we'll do the creative stuff on top of that. That just sounds like a lot. So figure out how much time you have, how much time you want to dedicate to it. Get some resources. You do not have to be the greatest artist in the world to be able to teach art to your kids. I used a program called Artistic Pursuits. It is just in a book form. It's not online. There's some great online ones as well. My kids learned a lot about art because of that. I didn't know how to pronounce some of the supplies, but I figured out how to get them and just kind of taught it to them as the book said and let them go with it. So let's go back to figuring out what is your family culture, what's important, because there are probably things that are important that you're doing that those other families are not doing. Doesn't mean that they're any better, you're any less, or you're any better, they're any less, but talk to these moms and ask them where they're finding out about these engaging lessons. And maybe they might say, why don't you bring your kids over and they can do it with us? And that would be like a win-win for everybody. Like, you'll be like, sure, I love to bake. I will bring some cookies. Next question says, I have 3 boys. Their ages 6, 3, and 3. So I'm going to assume that you have twins there. What advice do you have for cultivating the relationship with sons in particular from the early years through the later years? My boys are currently 21 and 17. I grew up with 3 younger brothers. So for me, like, boy world was a bit natural. If I had a bunch of girls, I don't know, that would have been a shock, but the Lord knew. Let's give her a couple of boys. And I think for boys, a big thing is appreciating them and their humor, and just knowing that the potty talk is going to happen. There is no avoiding it. It does not matter how much you try to stop it. It will continue. It will, even behind your back. And there is a book called Everybody Blank. Everybody defecates. The other word for that starts with a P. And somehow that book ended up in my house. And I remember just finding my boys reading. There's no words, I don't think, in the book. Laughing hysterically. I was like, I do not understand this. So it's working to try to understand them to a degree. It is appreciating them and their humor and their energy and telling them that as they get older in short bursts of words. They don't need to hear an entire monologue about all the wonderful things that they do. Just give just a simple sentence. Maybe you notice that they are sharing their toys well with the other one. You can say later, I really appreciate how you are sharing. That was very kind of you. So pointing things out and spending time with them. Spending time right now, all 3 of them that you have, but then also spending time one-on-one with them, connecting with them, really getting to know them. And I think with boys, how I said short bursts of words, we as women are very wordy. We know that. We have a lot of words to use each day. Males do not. And your sons are not much different. When they are young, they might have a lot of words to get out. But as they get older, they'll become more quiet. Don't take offense to it. Don't assume that they have some deep, terrible thoughts or anything. But when they do talk, stop what you're doing. Put down your phone. Stop washing the dishes. Stop whatever it is you're doing and listen to them. Let them talk maybe they'll speak for 1 minute straight, or maybe it'll be 10 minutes straight, or you might sit and talk to them in their room for a couple of hours. When those moments come as they get older, just take it. I could probably go on for a while, and I think I do have some episodes maybe about boys, and I will drop those in the show notes for you. But just be willing to adjust as they grow into becoming a man. They're little boys right now, but the goal is to raise them up into men. And read books, find great Christian authors who are solid and are going to give you advice as mom. Because the hard thing is, it happens sooner than we think it's going to happen, than we really want it to happen, is that we have to turn things over to dad being the lead for them. But guess what? Boys always have a special place in their hearts for mom. I don't watch TV anymore, but I remember way back in the day when I would and maybe watch a football game. I don't watch football. I'm not into professional sports or anything like that. But when the camera would come, now, okay, there's social media now. It's not as big of a deal. So let's go way back. Whenever the camera may pan on the audience or to the sports team, they would all yell, "Hi, Mom. Hey, Mom, I love you." Some type of message to their mother. Mothers are a son's first love, and we will always have a special place in their hearts. And so remember that. Remember that even though it might seem like they're distant as they get older, they'll still come home to you. They still have so many memories and appreciate you and you showing them what it is like to love them. So I would just say in general, you also have to approach them individually in how they are, their personality. You might have some boys that are very rambunctious and loud, and you might have some that are just more pensive and quiet. And so not pushing them to be something different than they are, helping them to find their gifts, talents, and abilities that God has given them, and then giving them things to do that will help to cultivate that. Next question says, all of these questions about co-ops have been extremely helpful. So we got another co-op question here. I also started a homeschool group and often wonder how others work. I've been struggling lately with most of the moms disappearing during our meetups. So this is how this question is different. We meet from 10 to 12 once a week. During that time, most of the moms are somewhere in the church. I maybe see them 30 minutes at most. I've found myself chasing kids around the church, trying to get them back together, and none of the moms are in sight. A lot of them have had babies, which is great. However, is it unreasonable for me to say that if you have to leave to go change or feed your baby, or your other children must go with you? It's just too much for me to manage so many kids of a variety of ages on my own. This isn't a drop-off event, so I'm just not sure how it got to this. I remember being a mom with little ones, and any break I could get, I would try to get off on my own, even if it was just me and baby. So it sounds like that's part of it. And I'm sure that the woman asking the question, I'm sure she understands that as well. I don't know how many kids these are, but if it's just you, that actually is a little bit of a safety concern for kids. Obviously, the moms trust you enough just to leave their kids, but I would hope that moms would recognize and be like, okay, there's 15 kids and one mom here. Maybe there needs to be more than that. And so if you are chasing after a kid who took off, the other 14 kids are now left unsupervised. And so that doesn't sound like a good situation at all. And it can be delicate here. There has to be a meeting. I think you need to have a meeting and get everybody together. And I would do this in a way that everybody is seated, and you included, and maybe sit in a circle. It's not you standing in front of a room lecturing them. Sit down and say, so I have some concerns. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I am experiencing. And this is not sustainable for me. There are some safety concerns with this. And these are, I don't want to say rules, but these are going to be the guidelines for our meetups from here on out. And you need to be present. This isn't a drop-off event, and just kind of explaining it. It's very easy for co-ops to start to take a different turn if nobody is keeping it on track. And so you might have to continually remind people. You might have to pull a mom aside. You might have to have some conversations. When you're leading a group, there's going to be conversations and things that might hurt somebody's feeling, but pray about it beforehand and then try to present it in the most loving, kind way and understanding way. But I think that definitely something needs to be said, and there needs to be some guidelines and some boundaries, and this is what this is. And if you want a drop-off event kind of thing, you're going to have to find something else. And okay, we've got one last question here. It says, my family has also been a military family. So she must have listened to the episode about that. I think that might have been the last one. My husband is retiring and we're moving back home. How do I go about finding homeschool groups and co-ops? I tried to search some Facebook groups and didn't have any luck. Where does everyone go to find these groups to join? I can commiserate with you. When we moved to a new state, I had a very difficult time finding some co-ops and groups. And it just felt like even when it was hard. So I totally understand. So I would say, yes, Facebook groups is going to be a big thing. Just search in some keywords. Take a look at the area you're moving to. Maybe if it's known as like Central Morris County Homeschool or something. Maybe it's known as Central Morris, or maybe it's a state. Maybe it is Central Virginia is what that area is called. So what is that area called is one thing to look for, not just the geographical location. Maybe there is some type of other word that everybody knows it as, and look for that. And then homeschooling, homeschool co-op, homeschool group. Also put in the city. And now if you're moving to a small town, you might then need to look to a bigger city or a bigger town that it's closer to, and then put that into the search, because you might not find if you're moving to little podunk middle of nowhere, but 20 minutes away is a pretty big town or a city, you're going to want to put in that city instead. So yes, so start with Facebook groups, and it might take until you're actually there to be able to find other groups. Find even just one homeschool family, find one other homeschool mom, and just flat out ask her. Get all the information you can from her. And if she doesn't know, say, do you know of another homeschool mom? So I remember so we started going to this church, and everyone's like, oh, there's so many homeschoolers here. And I was like, great, can you introduce me to some, even just one? And they'd look around and say, oh, I don't see any of them right now. It felt like months to finally meet one homeschool family. And I was like, can you introduce us to some more? And then can you introduce us to some more? And just asked a lot of questions. Another option would be maybe to call around to some of the churches that are in that area and ask, do you host any co-ops? Do you know of any co-ops or any types of homeschool groups? Now, oftentimes maybe a homeschool secretary might not understand exactly what you're saying, but just like homeschool family. You might be able to say, look, I'm looking to move to the area. Do you know of any homeschool families in the area? I'm not looking for you to give me their personal information, but if I give you my name and my phone number or my email address, would you be willing to pass this on to another homeschool mom that goes to your church? Then hopefully they'll do that for you, and then that mom can decide. And so just pray over that. Like, Lord, help me to call the right churches, help me to be able to connect with whoever's answering, and may they pass on my information, and then that person actually give me a call. But sometimes it's hard to find something until you actually have boots on the ground where you are, and then just start searching and start asking questions. And it's not even all homeschoolers that know. Sometimes you can meet other families, maybe from churches, and they might be able to point in the direction of some homeschoolers. Everybody knows a homeschooler somewhere. And even if you don't homeschool like that other family, that's fine. Ask them where you can get some more information. It took me years to be able to find all the different groups and all the different opportunities that there were. Because sometimes things would come up like, oh, now you want to play soccer? Okay, now let me ask around and try to find somewhere for you to play soccer. I hope that these questions have kind of given you a little bit of insight, maybe answered some of your questions. There is one more question left, and I think that I'm going to save that one and do an entire episode around that one, because I think it's important to talk about. That means that I need new questions for January. So I would love to be able to hear that from you. Go ahead and check out the link in the show notes. Friend, have a great day and merry 10 days before Christmas. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.